John?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right. You gotta walk into the street because I don't get service.
Oh, it's all good. I was adjusting my audio machine anyway.
Cool.
So, how are you feeling?
All right.
All right.
Just got back from a walk with Anthony, who was with me at American Babylon.
Yes. I think I know which guy you're talking about.
Yeah.
He was there when we were having our conversation under the little canopy.
Yep.
So, just so you know, this is being recorded.
Cool.
Just for the sake of, reference.
Yep.
I'm just going to ask some questions, and feel free to answer as long and as opaquely as you like, because I don't mind at all when things just meander if they need to. Cool. So the first question is an easy one. What's your name and where are you located in time and space?
My name is John White, and I am in Newton, New Jersey.
What part of New Jersey is that in, physically?
North.
What part of Jersey is that in, emotionally?
It is rural, conservative New Jersey.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is that where you grew up?
Yep. Morris and Sussex County, North Jersey. So I grew up mostly 15 minutes away in Lake Hopatcong, which borders Sussex and Morris County. So I've pretty much lived in this area. I've gone on to live in other areas briefly, but have returned here.
Understood. And that seems out of character for who you are. So by what special alchemy did you manage to become so strange?
Oh yeah, somebody asked me that the other day. I don't know. I feel like with so many people, it's kind of inevitable, I guess, that even mundane areas produce strange people. I don't know. I had a pretty normal, pretty normal family. Pretty normal.
What are your parents like?
They're pretty down to earth, working class people.
What sort of jobs did they have when you were growing up?
My mom was like an insurance grunt, doing like computer stuff for insurance companies, and my dad is a printer.
So mom is like data entry things, and then
she kind of worked her way up as well. She started at the bottom in insurance, and then over time, she's got more and more involved. And then when I was 3 years old, they divorced.
Oh, okay. So that was pretty early on.
Yeah.
Did you spend a lot of time with both of them growing up?
Yes.
So they shared custody?
Yep.
Did either or both of them remarry?
My mom remarried 5 years ago.
Okay. So it's not like a childhood thing.
Yeah, no, I didn't grow up with any step parents.
No step anything.
No step anything till much later. And they both had love interests growing up, but they were never like living with us.
Sure. Did you grow up with a lot of animosity towards your parents, or were you pretty easygoing with them?
I guess yes and no. Because when I was younger, I always felt like I had to do sports and random activities that I didn't really want to do. Stay at my aunt's house or go to sports camp or CCD, Christian After School Care. You know, I was raised a Catholic. My mom's Catholic, my dad's Protestant, so there was a lot of stuff that I didn't like growing up. I wouldn't say that they were particularly abusive or mean or anything, but I have problems with just American culture in general, you know. So having parents that are pretty down to earth, run of the mill Americans, you can run into some problems, you know.
I see. And do you know when they were younger, maybe before you were around, were they at all interested in countercultural things?
No. Well, my dad was a troublemaker. Grew up in the 70s. Started drinking and smoking when he was like 12, 13 years old. Had uncles that were pretty different, but different not in a way where they were politically radical, but just sort of almost like a Dazed and Confused or something, that picture of the 70s where, you know, people are sort of allowed to be scoundrels back in the day. He was certainly a scoundrel. Yeah, and he got himself into quite a bit of trouble. So my dad has a pretty rebellious spirit. I mean, he works at a pot factory now. You know, we get along very well. I live with him currently.
He lives in New Jersey? I
Yeah.
guess he must, yeah. So he was just more of like personally rebellious sort of person, rather than...
Yeah, he doesn't really, he wasn't exposed to political radical people or like avant-garde art or things of that nature. My mom was more like a Studio 54 kind of person. She liked disco, and she would that was kind of her scene, I guess. You know, to compare her tastes.
Did she go to New York City sometimes?
I don't know about. I'll ask her about Dance City. What's
Okay,
Dance City? Was that a club in New York?
No, I'm saying, did she go to New York City
yes,
to party?
yes. Studio 54 was in New York City.
Oh, you meant that literally?
Oh
okay,
yeah. Oh yeah. No, she literally would go to Studio 54. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, did you get interested in parents because of? Did you get interested in music because of your parents at all?
To an extent. When I was younger in the car, they would play music for me, and like on the radio, and then they would quiz me, and they would say, "Who is this? Who is this?" And it kind of was a fun thing for me, and it made me memorize a lot of music. My dad was into like classic rock, and my mom was more into just like I don't know, kind of whatever was on the radio. So I didn't have a strong like my parents didn't push music on me, or they didn't introduce me necessarily to something that I wouldn't have otherwise come across. But there were actually some records that my dad, my Uncle Charlie left behind to my dad that were passed down to me. And one of them was a Gentle Giant record. And I really love Gentle Giant.
So, how old were you when you started playing music yourself?
When I was in fourth, I think I was telling you when we were talking before, in fourth grade, I started a band and I would write songs, but I never performed any of them. We were too young and nothing was going
can you
on.
Hold on? There's people playing music in my living room right now.
That's fine.
Just give me about 1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
What was the question?
Oh, how old were you when you started playing music yourself?
Oh yeah. I was in 4th grade and I would write songs and I would recite them like poetry, but never actually perform them with a band, even though that was my original intention. And then as I got older, I flirted around more and more playing music until I was 16, before I started an official project where I made music often.
And that was named what?
Hello. Um, at first it was named Giant Enemy Crab God. It was kind of a joke at first. It started as a joke, which a lot of my early music project did. And Giant Enemy Crab God, which is now Giant Enemy Cancer Cult, started pretty much as a giant joke, and the music was meant to be really abrasive and annoying, and somehow it became very serious. And not necessarily serious in that I take myself too seriously, but I became very devoted to the project, more than I thought I initially would have.
So did you start out writing songs?
Yes, actually. Even at that stage, I would write poetry. So the war against crustaceans happened 1,000 years ago, where the authoritarian lobster regime imprisoned the crabs, and so the crabs, they escaped and staged a rebellion against the lobsters, who maintained their power because lobsters, as you may know, can be immortal and keep growing if their shells are maintained. So back in certain times when certain islands existed, there was an entire island of lobsters who enslaved the crustacean race, and therefore crabcore was born out of the oppression of the crustaceans, who were enslaved and had no choice but to create this music. So a lot of the early crabcore music was written for the purpose of liberation of one crustacean race of another.
And what would you say got you interested in those sort of subversive undertones?
I've always been a very politically minded person, and I think that it's I think that it's a common theme in history that the greatest art is often created through, not to say that pain equals good art and that you need to inflict pain upon yourself, but communities that come together in the face of oppression and wind up being happy in the face of oppression and able to express themselves in the face of oppression, the art winds up becoming more real than more bourgeois, run-of-the-mill art forms. So I think that what interests me in the plight of the crustaceans is that in order to express a freedom, sometimes you have to express what's freedom is a relative term, usually in reaction to oppression, and so initially, especially, it was a very good force to channel a lot of political metaphors and draw a lot of things from current American society into what's happening there.
Now, your idea of the lobsters being immortal, that's an interesting mechanism for how they would be able to oppress the crabs, but how did they oppress the crabs, like, physically?
Well, they would keep them in cages and camps.
Okay.
And a lot of the history as well is lost through time because these are our ancestors. Crabs don't live forever, so we can only recall legends of their plight.
And why did the lobsters keep them in camps and cages?
Well, the lobsters, through being immortal, assumed that they were superior and more intelligent than the crabs. And so, since the crabs are also crustaceans that often occupy the same space, they formed a hierarchy and enslaved the crabs to be their work slaves.
Now, what's the motive for the lobsters, though? Why don't they just live forever and not enslave the crabs?
Because they want to live forever, but they don't want to work forever. So the crabs are the workers.
I see.
Yeah, because you live that long, you don't want to live your whole life having to fend for yourself. So eventually, you form these hegemonic power constructs armed by crabs who don't live long enough to tell the difference.
And why haven't the crabs sought immortality?
Well, eventually, with technology, I think every species will eventually, with enough intelligence and technology, will contemplate immortality when we get to that point. But lobsters are the only ones who biologically, that I know of, can actually maintain that point without any sort of technology.
I see.
Other than social technology, of course, if you consider that a technology, which intelligence itself could be seen as a technology, but maintaining this is something.
It's a meta-technology. Intelligence is, yeah. So, okay, are there lobsters who don't enslave crabs?
Yes. Well, see, this was a main point of contention in the changing of the band's name and some of the direction. A lot of in our early shows, we would preach against the authoritarian regime, lobster regime, which we still do. But we've learned that not all lobsters are evil, and we used to have a very we found ourselves othering the abstracted projection of the other. We found ourselves demonizing the lobsters when really it was power and corruption that we hated. So we had a sort of an existential reconvening with our idea because it was too much anti-lobster. We had people at shows, destroying lobsters. We even had an idea once where we might take a live lobster from its tank and put it on stage in the show. And that's when I realized maybe, these creatures now are enslaved by human beings. So this is wrong. Even though the lobsters enslaved the crabs, it's wrong. And we would let lobsters play with us, if as long as they didn't want to hurt any of us.
Yeah, I think the way it works out in my mind is maybe there are some lobsters who would like to help crabs live forever if they want to.
Maybe.
And maybe immortality isn't necessarily a path to slavery.
This is true.
So that's all very interesting. Now tell me about the the physical philosophy of the show. Like, who is in your band and how do you become a member of this band?
Okay. So everyone is already in the band. That's our philosophy. In fact, people who haven't played with us are more in the band than people who haven't. So the goal a lot of the time is to get as many people playing at once. But we don't consider it a jam. We consider it a song, even though we're some people might compare certain meandering moments to jams. We try to leave it all on stage and really make it a performance for people and include, and with maximum inclusivity, include as many possible people for. There's a variety of abstractions that resonate with the band that might be able to describe it better. Like, I think there was a Aphex Twin quote about how the government wanted to shut down raves in the 90s, and he had this thought in his head that maybe one of the reasons is because they wanted to, like, if the whole world joined in on this, it would be too radical. And I think there's a truth to that, where if everybody joined in the same song, it would recontextualize hierarchy and power dynamics. And there's also the fact that I have a long-standing theory about genres and crystallization, and how certain music scenes and acts, once they repeat themselves, they form a. I think anytime something repeats itself, it crystallizes. For and this form has a lot of negativity to it. In that a genre that is aware of itself winds up destroying itself because its parts become assumed. To make that more clear, I guess, people say that repetition in music is a legitimizer or a validator. It validates through one form of repetition, validates the previous motif. However, I think that repetition, this validization, is the same way that a politician tries to instill confidence sometimes. And I think that a lot of these scenes, the repetition and the sheer traction that it gains through the genre is this legitimizer that then crystallizes and forms a box around what it is and what it is not. Some genres are more like this than others, where you go to certain music scenes and they close people in and out, like, oh, you don't perform enough like this isn't real, this kind of music. So we wind, and Cancer Cult winds up getting put with a lot of noise musicians a lot of time, because a lot of the time noise scenes, even though we're not always playing harsh noise music, they're generally very inclusive and have a lot of bizarre acts compared to playing at a bar where you're playing rock and roll or variations. Fancy places, they want you to play jazz. So the idea is that by never settling into one place and never forming a definition of what we are, that we can never be codified and stratified within a crystallized form that then blocks things out. So by maximizing inclusivity and accepting chaos, you constantly keep things fresh, instead of trying to perfect one sort of sound that then, as we see with any kind of genre, the original scene, the thing that makes it what it is, it's no more. And people try to capture that through repeating the sounds, when really the sounds weren't what made it. The medium is the message.
So that's the way that sounds to me, is kind of, it's a deconstructive way of approaching genre.
Yeah.
Now, in the interest of an interesting interview, what would you say the drawbacks of your approach are?
I would say that the drawbacks were already, at least personally, this isn't true for every member of the band that plays with us, because everybody has their own ideas on this, so I can't even really speak necessarily as a 100% authority. And even a lot of what happens eludes me because there's so much chaos. But I will say personally that I've accepted the flaws up front, and therefore weaponizing them makes them not flaws, but it could still be inconvenient. So for example, we never rehearse. We play together. There's a lot of us who play together, but we don't rehearse. So this creates a chaos in terms of relying on sound people or relying on our own states of mind to get the job done. We're not drawing from anything of memory a lot of the time, so things don't always. If you form any preconceived notions, it's very easily that they'll be shot down. And some people can't handle not having plans. But like, as I said, like the flaws, I think they're already accepted up front. Like not planning, well, the fact that we're not going to plan, see, like you could have 1 foot in and be a punk band, right, or something, and go, well, because I don't have a stable mental health and I'm not constantly playing with people and I don't have a lot of money, I could just play in a band that just learns really simple stuff, and that will be fun, But to me, that's kind of like having 1 foot in the door and 1 foot not. I try to go all out and say, well, we're not going to even play quote unquote simple music because we're not stable individuals. We're going to turn the whole thing on its head and weaponize our instability. So I kind of accepted. I don't know if that makes sense, but accepting your flaws up front when you make the project means that the drawbacks are now actually the weapons.
I've done that plenty of times with my own work. I call it embracing the accident.
Yes.
But I think, okay, just if you don't mind me waxing philosophical for a second myself.
Oh, please.
Like with my music, I've often used a lot of software synthesizers, and I was always interested in making the software synthesizers sound like they are software synthesizers. I never wanted to make them sound like they were aping another instrument. I didn't want to make them, highly engineered, well-produced pieces, because I wanted to accentuate the part of it that made it distinct from other things, and the thing that a lot of people would be put off by also regarding it, because I think I see this reflected in your philosophy for how you approach this music. There's a naked vulnerability in doing that, because you're giving people the thing they're most likely to be upset with you for right up front.
Yeah.
And that allows them, or maybe makes them, be confronted with it, instead of it being a kind of salesman's game where you're sort of insinuating what you really like or really are interested in to this kind of like, oh, but how can I get you to buy it, on a mental level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And there's certainly an aspect to playing in any band where the members, everyone wants something.
Mm-hmm.
Some people want things more than others. Some have different expectations. Some, as you said, you're giving people what they don't want up front. Sometimes it's difficult to confront. A lot of improv is so raw and vulnerable, as you're saying. It makes you feel a lot of different confusing things. And I definitely think that there's like just watching our shows back, sometimes I've realized that we don't really try to sell people things. Even when we have things for sale, a lot of us are too awkward and shy to even mention that we do. And it's really just like a passionate thing. And some of us have talked, well, maybe we'll get some notice for it, but it's something that sometimes I have just trouble describing my philosophy. But again, with the 1 foot in the door and the simplicity, and instead turning the whole thing on its head with success a lot, I tend to find that if you just focus on the act in the moment, that you will attract people like you who want similar things, and often that can be good in a mutual way that's very natural, as opposed to like just letting the merchandise dangle sometimes, because I don't know. I think that if you play something really from the heart, that you don't have to necessarily worry about marketing yourself, as long as you don't have any ideas that this is going to be something that you're supporting yourself with, because this is a project that this is our therapy and our way of life. And it's hard to juggle that and money and everything for sure. But the very fact that we're juggling it sort of creates a pathway where we can, it also allows this to work, because we're so stressed out and we don't have time to plan anything. And so when we get together, it's sort of these magical moments. And it is very vulnerable, and it's hard, because I wouldn't say that we're necessarily not marketing ourselves. I think any band that exists is sort of marketing yourself in some way, right?
Sure.
Like attention itself is an economy, and I've definitely
giving something a name is a brand. I mean.
Exactly, and I figured one of the things that I like about the deconstructive element of this project, and what keeps me attached to it so long, is that I listen to recordings and nothing sounds the same, and but yet people keep there keeps being more and more members and more people added on, and it sort of creates this lore to the band that I sort of have the foresight to see that, yeah, even though this isn't how I'm making a living, the sheer amount of weirdos and geniuses and musically, like, just the most talented people ever that come in and out, you just know sometimes what you have, and you keep the secret, or you keep the magic alive in its obscurity, because it's not something I think a lot of musical acts try to market themselves immediately to some sort of monetary gain. But I think that a much wiser thing is to let the magic marinate and sort of become something before you start doing that, because then that's your life. And then I see so many musicians who tour the world who are unhappy because they're playing the same thing all the time.
Speaking of touring musicians, where have you taken this physically?
Yeah, so this year we've been really everywhere. We took it was me, Phoenix, and Zip, but we never repeated a lineup once. And we went to Virginia, we went to New Orleans, Arkansas, Texas, New Mexico, Slab City, California, Las Vegas.
Where did you play in Las Vegas?
We played at what was it called? Do you know Aaron? Aaron Dunham, I think his last name is. I forget. He's part of the band Chocolate Jesus.
Okay. No, I'm not familiar with him.
Okay. So we actually advertised on the Slab City Facebook group if anybody wanted us to play. We wound up playing 3 shows and living a week and a half in Slab City, which is awesome. And then we actually had other people from other parts of the country who actually hang out on, or it's some interesting stuff when you're looking at the Slab City Facebook page. But for whatever reason, they were on there, and they messaged. I think this guy Garrison from the Pacific Northwest and Aaron both messaged me saying, "Hey, I saw your thing on the Slab City group. If you want to come here, you can come play here." So this guy was in Las Vegas, and he seemed, I was checking out his band Chocolate Jesus, and they do a lot of improv, and I really liked the improv that he was showing me. So we decided after LA that we would go to Las Vegas instead of going up California, because gas prices were so bad there. It was like over $6 at the time, or like really insane.
That was when Russia invaded Ukraine and all the prices shot up, right?
Yeah, a month into the tour, or actually 2 weeks into the tour, Russia invaded Ukraine.
And so the gas prices
fucking, they went up $1.50 right in the middle of the tour. Yeah, which kind of sucked and added a lot of stress. And after Vegas, we went to the Pacific Northwest, after.
Can I take I'm going to interrupt you just for a second because I just want to point out the absurdity of this world that Vladimir Putin sending tanks into Kyiv made life for the cancer cult more difficult on tour. like that somehow that there's a direct connection between those two events.
It's it really with COVID with COVID and all this stuff still happening in the world, all this petty bullshit still happening. It's really funny talking about COVID and the invasion of Ukraine like it's World War II. Like how you hear,
Putin's done a lot of bad things, but the worst thing he's done is he made it more expensive for the cancer cult to drive.
That bastard. No, it was funny. Like we were just like, damn, like this is literally the worst fucking time that this could possibly happen.
Yeah, really. No, it's been a bad couple of years for DIY music. That's like honestly, I mean, the music has been so great, but just the ability to maneuver has been so hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible the people that I met on tour, and one of the reasons why I really wanted to go on tour, even though I really didn't have the money for it, and blew all the savings I had on it, was because I wanted to meet people who were making the same kind of music I was, because I reached a point when I'm putting on shows and I really, really like what I'm doing, and so I immediately want to branch out and see what everyone else is doing. And it was so rewarding to go around seeing all the people who play the weirdest kind of music you would imagine. There's a really big camaraderie in it.
Yes.
And it's cool to see all the people who know other people. And I really like having, now I have much more of a knowledge of the kind of the DIY scene that's going in all these places, and music that's, has yet to be labeled. It's very exciting.
I agree on that completely, which is one of the reasons I was so excited to see the kinds of cult perform, and also when I just met you guys and how I don't know, there was a kinship pretty instantly, I think.
Yeah. It felt very natural. American Babylon. After all that time touring and getting there too, it was certainly, that was the most fun I had in years. I mean, I really loved that, and it was crazy to see all the people that came out for it. I thought it was very inspiring.
So it's working with you and having you around, and that's what made me want to do the interview. So we've gone through this pretty long conversation. We haven't promoted anything. Would you like to promote something?
It's hard. It's hard to promote something. Well, I will say that I have a very awesome friend in Brazil who makes music, and sometimes he'll put out cancer cult stuff, and he'll put out his own stuff, and I'm really want him to come to the United States eventually. He's planning on it. I don't know if this will ever happen, but we both really want it to happen. So his label's called Ultra Gash, and that label just released an album of The Work, which is post-Henry Cow, post-punk, and he's released a God King Josiah and Zovi album, which is about, it's a concept album about the perfect triangle.
Lovely.
And they're two very awesome Cancer Cult members. I highly suggest checking out the Ultra Gash label, because Lucas is one of those people, like he's one of the only people right now making music that I would say scratches that chaotic itch as much as my own music does for me with his band Esmectatons. So check that out.
Hell yeah. So this is going to be my final question for this this interview, which has been very good, by the way. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Is there anything else you would like to add that I haven't asked you about that you'd like to be included? Speechless. My goodness.
Well, how about this? Where do you see the state of the world in a few years?
Me?
Yeah. Where do you think?
Well, oh man, that's a question I could go on a long time about. But I think that bouncing realism in the way of the problems that this world is facing right now, which I think is some pretty big ones, with some kind of optimism. I imagine Europe is going to start investing at an accelerated rate in more renewable and nuclear energy. Sadly, the reason they're going to do it is because it's Russia, not really because of the reasons they ought to be doing it. But I think that Russia has made them extremely insecure about the perpetuation of getting gasoline and oil. And so they're going to be sort of market forced into other forms of energy, just in the interest of being terrified of Russia. And I think there's a big market war coming between the United States and China, probably. Obviously myself, I think everyone should just cooperate with everyone else. That would be really nice. But I think that a lot of our politicians and a lot of their politicians are sort of getting mad at one another for the deals that they also set up themselves 20 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be very interesting. All these different countries coming to a precipice upon renewable energy. I mean, that's a great point. And I'm always wondering, as a performer and artist, what art form is going to is more applicable and helpful to the world to come out of this political confusion, and what types of shows or what type of art would be most necessary. And is art now? There's also the thing that I think of too, like beyond just theory and praxis, right? I think there is a third method, which is performance or art or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
There sort of needs to be. I think there's an aspect of the imagination which is limited by these people in power. That quest for power.
True. But and imagination is what actually builds reality. Well, there's a kind of tension between imagination and tradition,
Yes.
The methodology and application of tradition. The effort is always to be like, well, we're not blowing up completely, so let's not ruin everything. And then imagination is like, yeah, but maybe we can make it better than it is. Maybe we could construct some new ways of thinking and new ways of behaving.
And sometimes I like promoting chaos, like controlled chaos in a lot of ways in art, because let's say I get something together and it's a ton of people and we're all playing random things. Even if a lot of it could be considered meandering, if there's at least one moment in that piece that's unique and has never been done before, I'm a firm believer that everything is just everything else rearranged in a different order. But that's not limiting. It's showing how creativity works. And I think like if you can create something that's quote unquote new, or you've arranged something in a new combination that nobody's ever yet to witness, if you just provide that, and now that is a new ingredient for the next thing. That's another reason why I don't like to rehearse the same things and get it out there. Once I get it out there, It's a new thing. And I feel like if you can have these moments, enough of these moments of chaos, which keep producing these new things and keep getting this out there and sparking people's imagination. And I would say I'm a materialist as well. Like I'm very personally, I live my life as an atheist or mostly an agnostic. I don't like a lot of religion or spirituality or anything like that, because I think that the imagination is pretty much my religion, and I think that's what we really, I think it's the imagination, yet still I would say I'm a materialist, and because the mind is material. So I wouldn't, so I was listening to a Timothy Leary tape, and he was saying, why don't all the politicians just smoke weed, and then we'll all be fine. I don't think I'm there, But
Yeah.
I'm definitely optimistic, as you say. I'm optimistic that through certain things, each individual can make a difference, even if they're creative and not politically minded, because it's always a confusing thing, kind of having to balance, especially in capitalism and in this society where you're limited in what you can focus on. So there's always a thing that gnaws at me, like, oh, you're not doing enough for the world at large, and then
Well, I agree. I mean, I think that there's an inherent dialectic evolutionarily between just stimulus and adaptation. And in a way, what art and experimental art does is it provides a danger. It provides a new stimulus without the metaphysical or physical danger of death. So, like the just like if a storm comes and pours rain on a Yellow Jackets hive, they have to figure out a way to not die. Well, art allows us to have the creative inspiration that comes from that kind of storm, but without a physical storm threatening anyone. So I think like the material, it's an idealistic thing, it's a creative thing, but it also ends up resulting in a material result because it provides us the thing that vexes us and that we must contend with, but it does it in a safe way because it doesn't endanger our lives.
Yeah, that's why like a lot of like philosophers like Trismegistus, alchemical people like Jung and things of that nature. I'll agree with them a little bit, but I think that sometimes it's more simple in the fact that it's just it's what we call art. Art is magicianship. It is alchemy. Ritual doesn't have to be anything more than a performance art piece. If you want to, like however you want to frame it, but I think that sometimes that stuff gets overcomplicated into a non-material reality, like things like collective unconscious. Surely there's epigenetic code and these things in us, but sometimes people invent these things that are too ideal, or the forms of I mean, Plato's a perfect example. Or who was it, Socrates or Plato? The ideal forms, how these things exist in forms.
Yeah.
I don't like that line of thinking, but I totally believe in the alchemy of art and performance and rearranging things and getting the as you said, the stimulus. And that was kind of what I was talking about before with the controlled chaos, how we're experiencing this chaos, yet it's not something no one's gonna die. Although I will tell you that playing in a group that allows anybody to be in it can certainly get you into some dangerous situations with people.
That is true. That is true. Yes, but that's less about the literal art that's being made and more about the process of how you're making it.
I don't know. I would say that is the process, because there is an aspect that you have to be okay with danger to make this kind of music. Sometimes, not that it's never the focus, but eventually, like we've been performing live for 8 years, and I've had this project for 10 years, and eventually somebody comes in that has a drug problem that's really bad,
Sure.
or somebody that they're fine and then they get shit-faced drunk and they starting shooting people randomly, and it's
But aren't those dangers implicit with life and with relationships in the first place?
Yeah, you got to put yourself out there, and I think that's one of the great things about inclusivity is you never let yourself cocoon and become too comfortable, and you try to get along with as many people as you can. And some people you can build that bridge, and at first they're dangerous, and then you manage to sell things and work it out. And that, I think, it shows up in the music. A lot of people's personality, how they perform on stage, and just projecting the subconscious, I think, as well. Like let's say, even if it's something not being new that's expressed, quote unquote, in a different order, but let's say that just by seeing people blow their subconscious load onto the audience, so to speak, they're seeing just that vulnerability is like, wow, that's in all of us. I think a lot of idiosyncratic expressions do that too, where it's like, wow, that like sometimes I'll hear somebody playing guitar improvising, and it sounds almost it sounds so human in the what some would call errors, but yet it's so I don't know, the vulnerability of all these different forms and chaos is just able to get people out of their